I love Studio Ghibli. What is there not to love about this iconic Japanese animation studio? They've been releasing classics for decades now, and even though the studio has died down in recent years, I think we can all appreciate just how impressive their catalog of films is. Hell, Hayao Miyazaki alone has a filmography that should make some animation studios feel ashamed of themselves. Anyway, out of the 23 movies that have been attributed to Studio Ghibli, I've seen 16 of them, including every Miyazaki movie. For anyone curious, here are the ones I haven't seen. Without further ado, and in no particular order, here are my picks for the best Studio Ghibli movies. Well, this is a depressing one to start off with, but it was the first one listed on the Wikipedia page out of all the movies I want to talk about, so what can you do about it? Even though the majority of Studio Ghibli movies are suitable for kids, there are others that aren't so much, and there's no more prime example than Grave of the Fireflies. This movie follows the story of two siblings, Seita and Setsuko, and their harrowing story of survival in World War II. It doesn't pull any punches, and it's absolutely brutal, but it's also beautiful. Every Studio Ghibli movie I've seen has been gorgeous, but Grave of the Fireflies sets itself apart by forcing you to appreciate the beauty in between the horror. There's a childlike innocence to this movie as we are observing the events through the eyes of two children, although Seita is a bit older and more understanding of what's happening than Setsuko. Something I appreciate about this movie is just how horrifically and beautifully ironic it can be. There's a scene in particular where Seita uses the cover of air raids to steal from homes, and he's pretty visibly happy during it. It's the kind of thing that seems ridiculous yet totally realistic given the circumstances. If you're not really one for these types of darker and more tragic dramas, then definitely give this one a skip. Personally, I don't mind if a movie is dark or has heavy subject matter as long as I'm deriving some sort of valuable experience from it. In the case of Grave of the Fireflies, it's an angle that's not been frequently portrayed by movies, war through the eyes of children. So this movie's dark, horrifying, and tragic. Naturally, it makes sense to show it as a double feature with My Neighbor Totoro. I seriously have no idea what the hell Studio Ghibli was thinking with this. I mean, are you crazy? I get that these two movies were both finished and they wanted to release them at the same time, but I can't imagine what the real-life experience of watching this in a theater would have been like. Anyways, Miyazaki has quite a few slice-of-life movies under his belt, and while I enjoy a lot of them, I think Totoro stands above the rest. This movie's just so cozy and fun and relaxing. That's not to say there's no depth, but it's one of those movies that you can just put on and feel happy for a couple of hours. I think this is a great time to mention Joe Hisaishi. His scores evoke such a mysterious and wondrous feeling that it's hard to put into words. He frequently partners up with Miyazaki, and he's a big part of what makes his movies feel so magical. But I digress. Totoro just has such a nice simplicity to it, and the character design of Totoro is rightfully iconic. He's a big fluffy pile of fur that's easy for anyone to get attached to. Honestly, I love this movie. It's definitely kind of a personal thing though, and I can totally get why people wouldn't be very into this. In a way, it's kind of uneventful, even though I do think there are things going on beneath the surface. Like, is Totoro even real? Or is their mom meant to be dying?
Man, I'm dead.
But I heavily appreciate that those subtle elements were left in so as to avoid the movie being totally devoid of anything. It's still a movie for babies, but if you're a big baby, you might enjoy this one. It's pretty whimsical and fun, and definitely inspires a sort of childlike wonder. Alright, on the topic of Miyazaki, I suppose it's time for me to mention what I think might be my personal favorite Ghibli movie, although I haven't seen it in a long time, so don't quote me on it. The movie I'm talking about is Whisper of the Heart. Now, the astute commenter might notice that this movie was in fact not directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and was in fact directed by Yoshifumi Kondo, who sadly passed away shortly after the release of this movie. And you would be right, but Miyazaki has the screenwriting credit, and the transition worked nicely, so I figured why not. Anyhow, if you're somebody who considers yourself to be a creative person, then this is a must-see movie. It tackles a lot of themes having to do with not being satisfied with your own work and not feeling like what you're doing is good enough, by your own standards and in comparison to everyone else. Honestly, I think if I saw this movie now, it would hit me a lot harder than it did even when I originally saw it. Being a YouTube creator myself, I struggle with a lot of feelings of inadequacy, especially in regards to my own work. Every time I upload a video, I can only wonder why it wasn't better and think about everything that was wrong with it. I know I shouldn't think this way, but subconsciously those feelings are always there. Anyway, Whisper of the Heart is a wonderful slice of life / coming of age story that will really speak to you if you relate to any of the things I've said. It's one of the studio's most grounded films. It's not a fantasy like a lot of the studio's other movies, but instead focuses on the real world day-to-day experience of life. Much like My Neighbor Totoro, it's a movie that some people might not find to be very eventful, which is totally understandable given just how little stakes there actually are in this movie. It's really all about our main character and her emotions. She's trying to write something she's proud of the whole movie, just like what I'm doing right now. If you can relate to a lot of the emotions of not being satisfied with your own work, then you're probably going to love this. If not, it might be a little bit of a snooze. That brings me to Spirited Away, the studio's magnum opus. This movie is absolutely beautiful. Not just visually, but storytelling wise as well. If there's any Studio Ghibli movie you have to watch, it's this one. The amount of creativity that goes into the creature designs is something to marvel at, and the world is just unlike anything else. Every location, every character, everything that happens is so wonderfully unique and innovative that you can't help but be fixated to the screen the entire time. The bathhouse in this movie is beautiful in its design. Every area is visually distinct from one another, yet they flow together perfectly. By the time the movie is over, you feel like you know the layout of the bathhouse as if you were the one spirited away. Get it? Because the title of the movie is Spirited Away. Anyway, you know the bathhouse layout very well by the end of the movie. The movie is just bouncing around from idea to idea, never wasting a step. This might also be Joe Hisaishi's best work as a composer. His music is incredibly complementary to the overall experience, and it does a lot of work in terms of selling the magic of what you're seeing. Not only is everything endlessly creative, but Chihiro's journey is beautiful. At the beginning of the movie, she's afraid, childish, naive, yet by the end she's so brave and fearless that it can't help but make you break out a smile. It's a timeless movie and probably my pick for the best animated movie of all time. I think anybody can relate to Chihiro. We've all been afraid of things in life, but when you take a step forward out of your comfort zone, brand new horizons open up for you. It's beautiful and it's all wrapped up in one of the prettiest and most engaging packages ever.